Have you ever asked yourself why you suffer so much from things you can't control? Why your mind spirals when life turns against you? As if every storm outside becomes a war inside your head. You see, most people live as prisoners of their own emotions. They are dragged by anger, drowned by fear, enslaved by the opinions of others. They spend their lives reacting, not living. And when everything falls apart, they call it fate, when in truth it was always weakness. But the Stoics saw the world differently. They didn't see chaos as the enemy. They saw it as the teacher. To them, life was a battlefield where the only thing you could ever control was yourself. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every hardship, it was all part of the training. The Stoics didn't seek comfort, they sought strength. And in that strength, they found peace that nothing in the world could break. Today, I'm going to take you into their mindset, not the soft motivational version you see on posters, but the brutal reality behind true Stoicism. The kind that rips away your illusions and forces you to face yourself. These aren't lessons for the faint-hearted. They're laws, forged in fire, meant to destroy the fragile mind and rebuild it into something unbreakable. Stoic Law #1. Control what you can, accept what you can't. Sounds simple, doesn't it? But it's the hardest thing a human can do. Most people waste their lives trying to change things that were never theirs to control. The weather, the economy, the opinions of others, the past. They shout at walls, curse the heavens, and drown in anger because reality refuses to obey them. The Stoics knew that control is an illusion, except for one thing: your response, your thoughts, your actions, your will. That's the only territory that belongs to you. Everything else is the domain of chaos. Epictetus once said, "You cannot control the external events, but you can control how you respond to them." But those words aren't gentle philosophy. They are the foundation of mental freedom. Imagine this. You wake up one morning to find everything collapsing. Your plans, your career, your relationships. The weak mind will fight the storm, scream at the injustice, and sink deeper into misery. The Stoic mind, however, stands still in the center of it all and whispers, "This is not mine to control." That moment of surrender isn't defeat, it's power. Because the instant you stop fighting the uncontrollable, all your energy returns to what truly matters: how you act, how you think, how you endure. When you master this first law, something strange happens. The world loses its power over you. The insults don't sting, the failures don't crush, and even pain becomes manageable. Because your peace is no longer dependent on what happens. It's built from what you decide. Most people will never reach this level of control because it demands something terrifying: letting go. Letting go of blame, of resentment, of the desperate need to shape the universe around you. You will be tested again and again by people and events that push your limits. And every time you choose composure over chaos, calm over reaction, you become less human in the ordinary sense, and more like iron. The first law isn't about serenity, it's about discipline, the kind that costs you your comfort, your ego, and sometimes your pride. But once you learn it, you'll never kneel to the chaos of life again, because you'll finally understand the truth the Stoics lived by. You can't control the storm, but you can control your ship. Have you ever wondered why pain always finds you, no matter how much you try to escape it? Why it always seems to appear when you least expect it, when you think life is finally settling down? Maybe it's not a punishment, maybe it's a test, or maybe it's the only thing that's ever been trying to make you stronger. If you're still watching, here's your reward. By the end of this video, you'll see pain in a way you never have before. You'll stop running from it. You'll understand how the Stoics turned suffering into steel, and how you can do the same, because this second law will hurt. It's not about feeling good, it's about becoming unbreakable. Stoic Law #2. Embrace pain. It's the price of power. The world teaches you to avoid pain, to seek comfort, to build your life around safety and pleasure. But what comfort ever built strength? What pleasure ever forged discipline? What pleasure ever forged discipline? The Stoics understood that without pain, the soul remains soft. Seneca said, "A difficulty strengthens the mind as labor does the body." Every hardship, every heartbreak, every betrayal, all of it is the universe's way of refining you. Think of your mind like a sword. If it's never been through fire, it stays dull, fragile, and weak. But when it's forced into the flames, hammered by trials and cooled by patience, it becomes unbreakable. That's what pain does. It burns away weakness. It exposes your limits, not to shame you, but to show you where to grow. The modern world tells you pain is bad, that it's something to medicate, avoid, or bury. But the Stoic laughs at that idea. He knows that pain is sacred, because pain doesn't lie. Pain reveals, it shows you who you really are when all comfort is stripped away. It shows you whether your strength was real, or just a mask you wore when things were easy. When you start embracing pain, truly accepting it as your teacher, something shifts inside you. The fear begins to die. You stop asking, "Oh, why me?" and start asking, "Oh, what can I learn?" You stop flinching at life's blows because you know each one is shaping you into something harder to destroy. The man who hides from pain will spend his life fragile, anxious, and dependent on comfort. The one who faces it, owns it, becomes powerful beyond measure. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote in his journal while surrounded by war and disease, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Those words are not just poetry, they are a command. The obstacle in your path isn't blocking you. It is the path. Pain is not your enemy, it's your guide. The next time you feel pain, emotional, mental, physical, pause. Don't run, don't numb it. Look at it, ask it what it's trying to teach you. Go safe. Maybe it's discipline, maybe it's patience, maybe it's letting go. Whatever it is, understand this. The moment you stop fearing pain, you become free. Because no one can control a person who no longer fears to suffer. The Stoics believed that strength isn't built in moments of comfort, but in the fire endurance. You don't grow when life is easy, you grow when life hurts. You accept that truth, you'll realize something profound. Pain isn't there to destroy you. It's there to prepare you for the greatness you keep asking for. So when the world hurts you, thank it. When life tests you, stand taller. When everything feels like it's breaking, smile. Because that's the moment you're being reforged into something far stronger than before. That's the law of pain, and it never fails. What if I told you that most people lose the war before it even begins? Not because the world defeats them, but because they can't command themselves. Think about it. How many dreams have died not from lack of opportunity, but from lack of discipline? How many battles were lost not to enemies, but to impulses, laziness, fear, and distraction? Here's the truth, the Stoics knew better than anyone. You cannot control your world until you control yourself. And that brings us to the third brutal law. Stoic law #3. Conquer the inner enemy before the outer one. Everyone wants power. Power over money, over success, over others. But few ever realize that real power begins with mastery of the mind. The Stoics saw the self as the first battlefield. Because if you can't rule your own thoughts, your emotions, your habits, then you are a slave. No matter how high you rise. Epictetus was once a slave himself, chained and beaten, yet he said something extraordinary, and no man is free who is not master of himself. His body was owned by another, but his mind, that was his kingdom. And that's the paradox the Stoics lived by. External freedom means nothing if your inner world is chaos. Ask yourself, how often do you obey your emotions? How often do you let anger decide your words, desire decide your actions, fear decide your choices? Every time you do, you surrender a piece of yourself. You hand your power to something fleeting, something fragile. The Stoic refuses this. He trains his mind the way a soldier trains his body, daily, relentlessly, without excuses. Self-mastery isn't glamorous. It's a quiet war. It's waking up early when your mind screams for comfort. It's staying calm when your pride wants revenge. It's choosing discipline when distraction feels easier. Each act of control is a strike against your weaker self. Each small victory builds the unshakable core that no failure can touch. The Stoics didn't believe in controlling others. They believed in controlling the only kingdom that truly matters, the one within. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, had armies at his command, yet he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Those words weren't advice, they were survival. Because even as emperor, he knew, if your emotions command you, you are already conquered. Self-mastery isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. It's seeing your emotions without being ruled by them. It's catching the anger before it speaks, the fear before it paralyzes you, the temptation before it leads you astray. The Stoic watches his mind the way a guard watches the gates of a fortress. Nothing enters without permission. And when you live this way, something changes. You stop being reactive. You stop being easily manipulated. You stop chasing validation because you already have command of the only thing that matters, yourself. The opinions of others fade. The chaos of the world becomes background noise. And in that silence, you find something rare. Peace born from control. Because here's a harsh truth. If you don't rule yourself, someone else will. It might be society, it might be your cravings, or it might be your fear. But the throne inside you never stays empty. Either you sit on it, or something else does. The third law demands discipline. Not for a week, not for a phase, but for life. Because mastery isn't a moment, it's a lifelong battle. Every thought you tame, every impulse you defeat is one more step toward freedom. So before you try to change the world, conquer the one thing that has stopped you every time. Yourself. What would happen if right now, everything you depend on was taken away? Your job, your status, your possessions, your reputation? Would you still be yourself? Or would you crumble as if your identity vanished with them? It's a terrifying question, but it's one the Stoics ask themselves every single day. Stoic law #4. Detach from what you can't keep. The truth is simple but brutal. Everything you love, everything you own, and everyone you know will one day be gone. That's not pessimism. That's reality. And the sooner you accept it, the freer you become. The Stoics didn't avoid this truth, they stared it in the face. They understood that attachment is the silent chain that keeps the human mind enslaved. We cling to things. Money, comfort, admiration, believing they make us whole. But what happens when those things disappear? We shatter because we built our worth on something fragile. Seneca once said, "He who needs riches least enjoys riches most." The moment you stop depending on what's temporary, you start owning it instead of it owning you. Detachment doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean rejecting love, success, or comfort. It means learning to hold everything with an open hand. The Stoic loves deeply but without fear of loss. He works fiercely but without obsession over outcome. He enjoys life fully but never worships it. Because the moment you cling, you suffer twice. Once when you fear losing it, and again when you do. Think about how much of your anxiety comes from attachment, fear of losing money. Fear of rejection. Fear of failure. Every fear you have is rooted in the illusion that something external defines you. The Stoic breaks that illusion. He realizes that nothing external belongs to him. Not praise, not possessions, not even the people he loves. They are gifts, not guarantees. Imagine walking through life with nothing to lose. No fear of failure, no dependence on validation, no desperate need for control. That's what Stoic detachment gives you. Not emptiness, but power. The world loses its grip on you because it has nothing left to take. And when you no longer fear loss, you finally understand what freedom feels like. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "I receive without pride, let go without attachment." He was the emperor of the most powerful empire on earth, yet he practiced humility as if he owned nothing. Because he knew, the higher you rise, the more you risk being chained by what you gain. Detachment was his armor against pride, greed, and despair. So here's the challenge. Start losing things on purpose, not physically, but mentally. Detach from the need to win every argument. Detach from the approval of people who don't matter. Detach from the illusion that you need more to be enough. Each time you do, you'll feel something strange. Not loss, but relief. Because the chains begin to fall. And that's when you'll realize the paradox of Stoicism. The less you need, the richer you become. Because true wealth isn't measured by what you possess, but by what you can walk away from without breaking. When you live by this law, the world can't hurt you. It can only test you. And every time it does, you'll smile. Because nothing that truly belongs to you can ever be taken. Why do so many people fail to change their lives, even when they're inspired, even when they want it more than anything? Why does motivation always fade the moment things get hard? The answer is simple. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions are weak. What you need isn't a spark, it's fire. A fire that burns every single day, no matter how cold the world becomes. Stoic law #5. Choose discipline over motivation. The Stoics never trusted feelings, because feelings are slaves to circumstance. You feel motivated when the sun's out, when things go your way, when the reward looks close. But when the storm hits, when exhaustion creeps in, when progress slows, motivation disappears. Discipline, however, doesn't care. Discipline shows up when you feel like it or not. It's the bridge between goals and results, between desire and destiny. Epictetus said, "No great thing is created suddenly." The Stoics understood that consistency beats intensity. A single burst of energy means nothing if you can't sustain it. Every morning they trained their minds like warriors sharpening blades, not for glory, but for endurance. Because they knew a man who depends on motivation will crumble the moment his emotions shift. Think about it. You've had moments where you promised yourself you'd change, start the project, hit the gym, fix your habits, and for a few days it worked. Then one morning came when you didn't feel like it. That's where most people quit. But the Stoic? He acts anyway. Because his actions aren't controlled by moods. They're commanded by principle. Discipline is freedom disguised as burden. It looks like sacrifice, but it gives you power. It looks like limitation, but it gives you control. When you do what must be done, no matter how you feel, you stop being a slave to your emotions. You become the master. The Stoics practice this everywhere. In thought, speech, and behavior. Marcus Aurelius didn't rule Rome because he was motivated every morning. He ruled because he trained himself to act according to duty, not desire. He wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work." That was his way of reminding himself that discipline is divine. That showing up, even in fatigue, is the mark of strength. Ask yourself, how many victories have you lost because you waited to feel ready? How many opportunities slipped away while you searched for inspiration? The Stoic doesn't wait, he moves. He acts without emotion, guided by reason, driven by purpose, because he knows that action itself creates momentum, and momentum is what keeps the fire alive. So stop chasing motivation like it's magic. Stop expecting the right mood to arrive. You don't need to feel inspired, you need to be consistent. The warrior doesn't wait for passion before drawing his sword. He trains until battle feels natural. That's the fifth brutal law, the one that separates the dreamers from the doers. You don't rise because you're inspired. You're inspired. You rise because you refuse to surrender. Motivation will start your journey, but only discipline will carry you through the darkness. Because in the end, greatness doesn't belong to the most inspired. It belongs to the most consistent. Have you ever noticed how the loudest people often understand the least? How those who speak endlessly are usually the ones most afraid of stillness? The Stoics knew this too. That true power doesn't shout. It watches. It listens. It waits. Stoic law #6. Master the art of silence. In a world where everyone is desperate to be heard, silence has become rare, and therefore priceless. The Stoics treated silence as a weapon. It wasn't weakness. It was control. Because silence is not the absence of words, it's the presence of self-control. Epictetus warned, be silent for the most part, or say only what is necessary. He understood that most people speak not to communicate, but to prove, defend, or distract. They fill the air with noise because they fear what might emerge from quiet. But the Stoic faces silence head-on, because in that stillness he meets his truest self. Silence teaches clarity. It sharpens observation. When you stop speaking, you start noticing not just the words of others, but their intentions, their fears, their weaknesses. You begin to see how often noise is used to hide insecurity. The Stoic sees through it. He doesn't need to respond to everything because he knows his worth isn't measured by reaction. In silence, anger loses its grip. How many regrets have been born from words spoken in haste? The Stoic doesn't give anger that power. He pauses. He breathes. He lets emotion pass before he acts. That pause, that calm, is where wisdom lives. The person who controls their tongue controls their life. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. Surrounded by advisors, politicians, and soldiers all demanding his voice, he often chose quiet. Not because he had nothing to say, but because he understood that words mean nothing without precision. Every word must serve reason, not impulse. Silence is also a mirror. When you learn to sit with it, you begin to hear the chaos inside you, the thoughts you've been avoiding, the truths you've been suppressing. It's uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is purification. The Stoics didn't run from their inner noise. They used silence to tame it. Try it. Spend a day without unnecessary words. Watch how your awareness sharpens. Watch how much calmer you become. The world around you slows down, and suddenly you see how little of it deserves your reaction. That's the secret. Silence gives you space to respond with reason, not reflex. The modern world equates silence with weakness, but the Stoic knows it's the opposite. The loud man seeks validation. The quiet man already owns himself. True confidence doesn't need to announce itself, it simply exists. When you master silence, you no longer waste energy defending your ego. You conserve your strength for what matters, your actions, your values, your peace, because in the end, it's not the loud who command respect, it's the ones who speak only when their words carry weight. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. Let silence do the talking. Let patience humiliate their noise. Because silence, when used with purpose, speaks louder than any arguments ever could. And that is the sixth brutal law of Stoicism. The wise stay silent not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand the power of restraint. Have you ever noticed how disappointment only exists when you expect something? You expect loyalty and get betrayal. You expect success and meet failure. Fairness and life laughs. The Stoics saw this pattern thousands of years ago, and they built their strength around breaking it. Stoic law #7, expect nothing, accept everything. This law is brutal because it kills the illusion that life owes you anything. The Stoics believe that most human suffering doesn't come from what happens, but from what we expect it to happen. Every expectation is a hidden demand placed on the universe, and the universe doesn't negotiate. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." He understood that pain grows from resistance, from the gap between what is and what you wanted it to be. The Stoic closes that gap through acceptance, not by surrendering, but by seeing reality without illusion. Ask yourself, how much peace have you lost waiting for life to be fair? For people to understand you, for the world to reward your efforts. Every time you cling to how things should be, you're at war with how things are. The Stoic ends that war by expecting nothing. Not because he's cold, but because he's free. When you expect nothing, you stop being controlled by outcomes. You work hard not because success is guaranteed, but because the effort itself is noble. You love people not because they'll love you back, but because love is who you choose to be. You face hardship not because you want pain, but because you understand it's part of life's design. Acceptance doesn't mean apathy. It means peace with reality. It means understanding that the universe doesn't bend for your comfort, yet you still stand tall within it. Seneca said, "A wise man does not grieve over what he does not have, but rejoices in what he has." That's the Stoic secret. Gratitude is his shield, acceptance his sword. When you practice this law, disappointment loses its power. Rejection becomes redirection. Failure becomes feedback. Every challenge becomes something to study, not to curse. Because when you stop expecting, you start observing. And when you observe without judgment, life begins to make sense in ways it never did before. The modern world breeds entitlement, the belief that you deserve comfort, validation, success. The Stoic rejects all of that. He replaces I deserve with I accept. And in doing so, he becomes untouchable. Because how do you break someone who expects nothing and accepts everything? You can't. This is the kind of strength the world can't understand, calm in chaos, composed in loss, unshaken in defeat. The Stoic walks through storms with quiet eyes because he knows that peace isn't found in control, it's found in acceptance. So when life disappoints you, smile. When plans fall apart, breathe. When people let you down, let them go. Because none of it was ever promised, and that's okay. You don't need guarantees, you need resilience. And that is the seventh brutal law of Stoicism. Expect nothing, accept everything, and you'll never be broken again. Have you ever stopped to think, really think, that one day you'll take your final breath? That every word you speak, every morning you wake up, every argument, every dream, all of it will vanish into silence? Most people avoid that thought. They drown it out with noise, with distraction, with denial. But the Stoics faced it head on because they understood something most people never will. When you remember death, you finally start to live. Stoic law #8, memento mori, remember you will die. To the Stoics, death wasn't a shadow to fear, it was a mirror to live by. It reminded them that time is the only true currency, and that wasting it in anger, regret, or hesitation is the ultimate tragedy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." Those words are not poetic, they're a warning, because every second you delay your purpose, every moment you waste on resentment, is a piece of your life you'll never get back. The Stoics meditated on death daily. They didn't do it to be dark or morbid. They did it to wake up, to stop pretending tomorrow was guaranteed. To strip away all the meaningless pursuits and see what truly mattered. When you remember that your time is limited, ego dies, pride fades, and only purpose remains. Ask yourself right now, if this were your last day, would you be proud of how you lived it? Would you have said the words you've been holding back? Forgiven the person you've hated? Started the thing you keep postponing? The Stoics believe that every day should be lived as if borrowed from death itself, because one day it will be. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Think about how much time slips through your fingers every day, scrolling, arguing, doubting, hesitating. We speak of a killing time, yet time is the one thing that's killing us. The Stoic sees that truth and moves differently. He values each sunrise like a gift and treats each action like it might be his last, because one day it will be. Memento mori isn't about fearing death. It's about fearing a meaningless life. It's about refusing to let days blend together in a blur of comfort and routine. When you live with death in mind, every second sharpens. You stop postponing growth. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop needing validation because there's no time for it. You simply live, fully, fiercely, presently. And something miraculous happens when you live this way. You stop being afraid, not just of death, but of life itself. You realize that all fear is borrowed time, all hesitation is self-betrayal. You understand that nothing truly belongs to you. Not your possessions, not your titles, not even your heartbeat. Everything is temporary. But in that impermanence, there's beauty because it makes every moment sacred. The Stoics live knowing that death walks beside them. Not as an enemy, but as a friend whispering, "Remember me and live better." They face mortality not to despair, but to find urgency, gratitude, and peace. So the next time you wake up, remember, you weren't promised this day. And when you go to sleep, remember, tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Let that truth shape your choices, your words, your silence. Live in such a way that when death finally comes, it finds you alive. Truly alive, not waiting for a someday that never existed. Because one day there will be no next time. And that is the final brutal law of Stoicism. Memento mori. Remember you will die, and let that memory make you unstoppable while you still can. I am giving you script. Please check mistake, hook, and everything in this script, and rewrite full script with full hook and everything which it need.